I've talked extensively on sugar causing weight gain and destroying the kidneys, the heart, the eyes, the nervous system. But I haven't really emphasized the magnitude of what sugar can do to your brain, especially the cognitive connection to the brain. And when I mean cognitive, I'm talking about your ability to put attention on something, to focus in and concentrate. See, when you put your attention on something for a period of time, you're actually ignoring a lot of extra data and distractions that are around you. You have to zone in on one thing, and that requires a good amount of cognitive power. In fact, your ability to hold your attention on something and get something done is really your personal power. And when you lose that and you're so distracted, they call that attention deficit disorder, right? They kind of made up and labeled this condition, which they say is a dopamine deficiency, but there's no proof. That's just a theory. They also say that there's no cure. There's just therapy and there's just medication. I would love to find one person who's ever been cured with therapy for ADD. And I'd like to also find one person that's ever been cured using medications. And I'm talking about actually coming off the medication, I'm talking about Ritalin, correcting the problem. It doesn't, because they definitely don't talk about a cure. They say there's no cure, but there's just management. You're managing these symptoms. Now, when we talk about the influence of sugar on the parts of the brain, especially the frontal lobe and the hippocampus, which is involved in memory, learning, and things like that, we do know that there's a very temporary spike in dopamine, okay, which is your pleasure center. It affects your mood, your behavior. It makes you feel better, right? It makes you feel happier, at least for a minute, right? Until the receptors for dopamine start downgrading, okay? So now it takes more and more sugar to create the same effect. But here's the big problem with sugar on the brain. It alters the inhibitory parts of the brain. So now we have less control over our own brains. We have less control over filtering this extra data that's coming in on us 24/7, and we cannot put our attention on anything for a period of time. So we lose focus. There's actually atrophy of the brain going on over a period of time. There's specifically the frontal lobe as well as the hippocampus, and it ages the brain. So it makes your brain older and it reduces blood flow to the brain. And what's really just bizarre to me is that when you look up attention deficit disorder, they talk about hereditary, they talk about environmental factors, but they don't ever even mention the word sugar as a direct association or a cause. And let me just first talk about the symptoms, how they describe ADD, okay? Not able to pay attention to detail, errors due to negligence, okay? Difficulty in focusing attention, problem with listening, problem with finishing tasks, problem organizing. I mean, what if they just never been taught on how to organize something, right? I mean, it's not something that always comes naturally to people. Next one is avoiding activities that require sustained attention. Problem in placing objects back where they belong. I think that's probably just genetic because I have a hard time putting things back where they should be. Gets distracted easily and forgetting tasks. I think this describes the entire population, right? And then how did they come up with this diagnosis? Well, they actually got together in a room and they voted on this. Say, there's no objective test, there's no blood test, there's no anything. It's all subjected.